Distinguished guests, welcome to Meet Southeast Michigan's County Leaders. Please welcome the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Barua.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wow. Well, welcome, everyone. It is so awesome to see you all here, to spend time, learn from, and frankly, not to get a little wonky here, but frankly to get inspired by the work of our three county executives. But before I get into that, I want to welcome you all to spring version number 2 here in Michigan. So let's hope this is the version that sticks. But thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your support of the Detroit Regional Chamber and our work. I want to thank the folks who have made today's event possible. They'll be scrolling on the screens throughout our program today. I'm also delighted that our dear friend and incredible nationally recognized 13 Emmy Award winner, Detroit Free Press columnist, host of CBS's Detroit Michigan Matters, the wonderful Carol Kane is with us today. And actually, this is her show. I'm just her warm-up act, right? Unlike the band you've never heard of that's coming on before the Stones. I also want, listen, we have a room full of dignitaries this morning, but I do want to recognize a couple people who lead organizations that are especially close to the Chamber and to our team personally. First, Steve Gregorian, the head of our great Detroit Economic Club, is with us today. Good morning, Steve. Rod Alberts, the head of the Detroit Automotive Dealers Association, and our fabulous auto show. Both of these guys have innovated their institutions in amazing ways, not just because of the pandemic, but that's certainly part of it, but they have moved those institutions in a way that have really kept up with the times, and we are so very, very fortunate. I also want to recognize Melanie Brown from the Governor's Office and the MEDC. Melanie, thank you so much. And for all of you who I've left out that I should be mentioning today, I'm driving a gray Dodge Caravan. You can meet me there, and you can beat me up in the parking lot then. The three counties that comprise the Detroit region have never been more productive, more collaborative, and frankly, more efficient than they have been today. And there's a lot of organizations and people that would love to take credit for it. Frankly, the Detroit Regional Chamber has had regional collaboration and cooperation as one of our core values ever since I've been in the job. But frankly, this dynamic, what we're seeing in the success of the collaboration of our Tri-County area is thanks to the gentlemen that we get to hear from today, Warren Evans, Mark Hackel, and Dave Coulter. Dave Coulter of Oakland County has been a leader in promoting equality and equity in opportunity before these things were cool. When he served as the mayor of Ferndale, he was the first mayor in the state of Michigan to perform a same-sex marriage. In the job he holds today as the county executive, he is focused on mental health, housing affordability, an incredibly acute issue in prosperous Oakland County. And as the county executive, Dave is committed not only to robust economic development, but creating the talent that is necessary to fill the jobs of tomorrow. Dave has set out an incredibly ambitious goal for the people of Oakland County that 80% of the people in Oakland County will have some form of post-secondary degree. And that outstrips our goal at the Chamber of 60%, which is shared by the state. An amazing goal, and that is going to be a game changer for the state of Michigan. Warren Evans, county executive for Michigan's most populous county, has been a public servant his entire life. And Lord knows he's been around the block. He's been around the block in police motorcycles. He's been around the block in police cruisers. But he's been around the block enough time that they named an international airport after the dude. I mean, that's incredible. But Warren traded in his sidearm and his police uniform for the incredible task of righting the ship of state of Wayne County. And when he took the helm in 2015, Wayne County was literally weeks away from insolvency. Who would have thunk in 2015 that we would be here today with a Wayne County that is so financially stable and prosperous as it is today? That is incredible work. And Warren has done this in a way that has allowed him to go from managing crisis to managing growth and to managing opportunity and making investments in the people and the infrastructure of Wayne County. And he's done it all in his typical low drama, low fuss, low key style. And Warren, thank you for your incredible leadership. Mark Hackel is the guy who actually made the mold. He is the first county executive for Macomb County, and Lord knows this job was built for him. I feel sorry for the gal or the guy who has to follow in the footsteps of Mark Hackel, because what he has done in Macomb County in terms of focusing on infrastructure, focusing on making Macomb County a beacon for integrity in government, that was no small lift. And make Macomb your home. How many have heard the phrase, make Macomb your home? Everyone has heard the phrase, make Macomb your home. In fact, Mark, I hear it so frequently, I'm feeling a little bad that I don't live in Macomb County. I mean, I'm only a mile away. I hope that's okay with you. But make Macomb your home has been so incredibly successful, but it really is a testament to how Mark operates. He is so committed to every part of his county, and the people of his county know it. And he's not just a lover of people, a lover of his county, a love of the natural resources that Macomb County is blessed to have. He's also a fighter. And when I say he's a fighter, there is no greater fighter in the state of Michigan for protecting and growing our defense and aerospace assets that we have. Things like, absolutely. Selfridge Air Force Base, the Tank Command, the Detroit Arsenal, and our big defense companies like Navistar and BAF and Oshkosh. The defense assets that are in Macomb County and across the state are the greatest unsung assets that this state has, and Mark Hackel is the front of the parade in making sure that none of us forget that. And I want to end on a word about airports. So Warren has the airport that one is named after him that we all use to go to Florida to go visit Grandma. Dave's got the airport that the fancy pants among you use for your private corporate travel, or the day that you win the lottery. But I tell you, Mark's got them all beat because he's got an airport that lands fighter jets and tankers. So we all have incredible airports here. So with that, thank you all for being here. I'm delighted to turn the program over to our panel and our great friend, Carol Kane of CBS Detroit.
How do you want us? I'm sitting in the chair closest to. You know where you're sitting, right? That's it, yeah. That means you're going to get more questions. All righty. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody who's going to be celebrating at lunchtime here. Raise your hand. Come on. There we go. We won't say which area restaurant you'll go to, but it'll be one of the three counties up here, right? As mentioned, I'm with CBS Detroit, and I write a column for the Detroit Free Press, and I want to thank the Chamber for pulling this all together. Such a great event. There's so many great things going on in our community. There's so many challenges we face that we've never had to face before. Opportunities and challenges, that's kind of a theme, it seems like, with what all you gentlemen are facing here. And I'm so glad you're here to shed light on what you're doing in your neck of the woods, what you're doing together, where the opportunities are. So let me pose a opening question, if you will. And flip of the coin, Dave, call it. It's heads. Yes. You get the first. There we go. So this is a question for all of you, and I'm going to ask Dave to go first here. So last year when we gathered in the same venue, it was the first time I think a lot of us had gotten together in person for the first time because of the pandemic. So here we are a year later. Much has gone on in your neck of the woods and all three of yours. And I guess I'm going to ask you to give me a nutshell on what's happened in your county since we last gathered here. And I think it was almost a year to the day, Sandy, almost a year to the day. Same place here, bigger crowd this time, which is good. And what's been the biggest challenge? So Dave?
The biggest challenge since
what has happened in your county since we gathered real quickly? Give us the headline on if we were writing a headline about what's gone on in your county since a year ago, what would it be? And what has been your biggest challenge?
Well, and thank you for being here, Carol. It's great to see you guys. Guys, great to be with you this morning. Thank you all for showing up. There's nothing like throwing a party and then having nobody come, so appreciate you all being here. Sandy touched on it, but one of our big audacious goals is to try to get to 80% of our residents, our adult residents, with a post-secondary degree or certification. That doesn't happen without a lot of effort, a lot of collaboration with our universities, with our community colleges, with our labor for trade programs, and all the rest, because it could be a certification. And so since we met last, we were at about 61% when I set that goal 2 years ago, and the goal is to be at 80% by 2030. So since we met last, I'm going to be reporting next Monday that we are currently at 67.5%. So we are making progress. And more importantly, the report's going to talk about how we've made that in progress, because it doesn't just, it happens with investment and collaboration and work. And we'd like to be a model for others who want to set their own goals, because we think that's really important for the state of Michigan to have, first of all, for the businesses here to have the employees, the skilled employees that they need, because not enough people understand that this is your way to, the second point, better wages. So it's better wages for our residents and good for our businesses. So that's been pretty significant over the last year. The biggest challenge.
Succinctly.
Oh, succinctly, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I know, you know.
Speaking quickly, that's my biggest challenge.
See, if Brooks Patterson was still sitting in that chair, he would have come back and he said something. I don't know what. Maybe you what would Brooks have said?
Before we started, Dave was giving me a hard time about keeping my answer short. How are we doing?
That's because he wanted more time. Don't you get it?
You got it.
Okay.
So, that being said, first off, I want to thank Sandy for the kind introduction of the three of us.
It's just as you wrote it, right?
That was exactly how I wrote mine. Thank you very much. It was scripted. But first off, I got to ask, anybody raise their hand? Anybody who believes when you ask somebody to come out if they're upset about the way you introduce some, but not all, to come out to the parking lot and identify him by his minivan, and if you want to beat him up. Anybody in here believe that guy drives a minivan? Raise your hand. Okay, that's going to be one of his staffers you're beating up, so be careful. I caution you, all right? So, sorry, Sandy. But with that being said, I mean, we could talk about roads, we could talk about talent, attraction, trying to bring it in, but there's no question. My main focus has been and will continue to be dealing with mental health and substance abuse. That has got to be something that's at the forefront of everybody's mindset. Every one of us here in this room probably knows somebody or has an issue within their business, companies, schools, educational institutions, as well as obviously our hospital systems. But law enforcement comes in contact with folks every day that they've identified, recognized there are challenges, and we need to do something about it. Again, we know the state closed down 30 years ago. These institutions never had that safety net for the locals to figure out how do we handle it. We are moving in a direction of Macomb County Central Intake and Assessment so that law enforcement coming in contact with anybody who has a challenge is going to be dealt with either internally or externally, working with our community mental health folks to address those particular issues. We need to do something, and in Macomb County we are making that happen. So.
Warren Evans?
Carol, I'm still trying to figure out about this chair. It reminds me of elementary school when they put me in one like this and had me face the wall most of the time. So I'm getting
Did that
used
happen
to
a
it.
lot, Warren?
A lot,
Yeah.
yeah, really a lot.
Maybe we should talk
No.
about that. That might be
For another story, long story. There are a couple of things that have happened in the last year. I mean, clearly, in the workplace, more people coming back to work, work adjustments because of COVID and where COVID was. But substantive issues in Wayne County, mental health is obviously a big one that we have to address. Education is another one that we really have to address, and do it substantively. And workforce development. I'd say those were the three things that are really the deal makers for the next 10 years. If we don't do better in those three areas, all the economic development work we're doing and the other things we're doing in our AAA credit rating now, all that starts to go south if you don't deal with substantive problems before they become so bad that you can't do anything with them.
And Mark, speaking of mental health, before we were talking here, you said we're not going to talk about it anymore in Macomb County. We're just going to, you want to finish it?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you stop and think about it. I mean, when they closed it down, there was no safety net. People weren't prepared to handle it. The hospital systems, our school systems, they just shut it down. And so now we're trying to figure out, what is the right way? How do we handle it? But when it comes to this institution, I'm talking about the jail, jail should never be a substitute for treatment. There's no question about it. But people that need to be detained because they're a danger to themselves or danger to others, while we're detaining them, what are we doing with them? Are we providing the proper care that we need to? It's not being soft on crime. It's trying to address the people that are in there. And Warren knows as well as I do when it comes to a county jail, that's short term. They're only there for a very short period of time. So what are we doing? How do we manage their care while they're there? But having the handoff from law enforcement to those that are specialists outside in Macomb County, like I mentioned, working with our community mental health, we are putting our money where our mouth is, and I say that for this reason. That ARP funding that came to every municipality throughout the entire country, it was questionable as to, okay, what are we doing? How are we getting all this money? But it's taxpayer money coming back, so rather than making it rain off the top of the county building by trying to solve everybody's problem, we have identified, work with our Board of Commissioners, how do we take that money and fund something that's going to be transformative for not only mental health and substance abuse, but for the criminal justice system. And we are that first point of contact that I think can relieve some of this issue happening within our hospitals, our schools, in your businesses, if we can identify people that have these issues out there from a law enforcement perspective. So we are moving forward with this project, and I think you're going to see something transformative in Macomb County that's going to resonate throughout the entire state and probably throughout the country in dealing with those issues.
Dave Coulter, mental health funds coming in. I know you have been making a benchmark and you've been putting a lot of focus on that. So how do you see what's taking place in Oakland County now, and what would you like to see in terms of mental health and being able to better address the needs? Because we know this is Mental Health Month. It's pervasive in companies and families and businesses. It goes through everything. It's a huge issue.
In fact, to date, we've spent more of our ARPA dollars on mental health than any other issue, so I couldn't agree more with my colleagues that this is a critical issue. The good news, or the silver lining to me, is that COVID has made it so transparent that I feel like the stigma is going down now. Every family understands that regardless of your income or your race or where you live, you can have these issues in your family. And so the stigma is going down. What that did, at least from my perspective in Oakland County, is the demand for services went like this. And so we heard from our providers that they couldn't meet the demand. So we've given direct grants to mental health providers. We've done mental health services in schools, the whole gamut to try to begin to address it. But to Mark's point, it's a huge issue that will ultimately require state and even federal strategies to make sure we did it. Because we dismantled the mental health system in this state a couple of decades ago. We don't need to rehash that, but it needs to be rewoven. And so right now we're kind of at the front line seeing the problem and saying, okay, we're going to do whatever we can, but a long-term solution is going to have to be crafted so that, I think the bottom line is, so that we treat mental health the same way we do physical health. If you break your arm, you go to the hospital, nobody says, sorry, we'll get you an appointment in 2 weeks. But that's what we do to people in mental health crisis, and we need to change that.
Yeah. So I know I'm listening to what Sandy's comments were at the start of this and laying out everything that's been going on here. And I had people coming up to me suggesting questions. So some of the questions I'm going to be giving you are questions that have actually come indirectly through the audience. Some just I'm talking to people in the community. And also, by the way, on the tables are index cards. If you have questions, write them down, and there'll be someone walking around to collect them, or you can pass them up. We'll be getting some of those questions in too. But a key question and a lot of focus is the sense of optimism that after coming through this horrible past 3 years in so many different ways with what went on with this pandemic, now we're coming out of this. And the question is, what can you point to that the three of you are working on together right now? And can you tell us a little bit about it? Let me see who jumps first at that.
You know, I don't know. I mean, myself, we don't have a particular project like transit or like, you know, even mental health that we're doing collectively. But I don't think that's the big issue. We're all working on those issues because the dynamics in each community is significantly different. In Wayne County, we don't have enough inpatient beds for mental health, and that's a big issue. And partnering with the mayor of the city to try to work on those. We're all working on workforce development. We really are. We have different counties with different dynamics, and so the industries are somewhat different, but I think the motivation to do it is something that we all have very clear in our minds. We've got to partner on big, substantial issues, and by partnering, I don't mean we sit at the table together and caucus, but the fact that we know what each other is doing, and we're looking at what fits Wayne County's mold, what fits Oakland County's mold, what fits, and so you know, I don't, you know, it's not like.
So can I follow that up? Can I follow that up real quickly here? Mm-hmm. So Dave.
Yeah.
When you first took over as county executive.
Yep.
And the hot issue at that moment, how many years ago was that now? Time
4 years now.
Holy gosh.
I know.
Time is flying
fast.
by. I remember you telling me, in fact, we were at the Breakfast Club, and you were up there, and the topic du jour was transit. And because of the fact you didn't know them as well as you should have, you had them all over for dinner. You made dinner for them to talk about issues. So have you had dinner since that first dinner?
We haven't done that. That was my introductory.
One and
you know,
done. One and done.
He wouldn't invite us back.
It's because we didn't do the dishes.
That's right.
He
You
got
guys
upset
were,
about that.
You know, were tough to. No, that was a lot of fun. But I was the new guy. I was like literally brand new, and I said, and remember. I know you all know this, but I was following a guy who was bigger than life and had a big persona, Brooks Patterson, and he had his own image and his own style of doing things. And so I really needed for them to understand that I am my own person. I'm not trying to follow in anyone's footsteps. I'm just trying to be me, and I want you to understand that. And so to your point is, I think Warren is absolutely right. Our three counties are very different, right? The issues are similar, but they play out in different ways. But what I appreciate, both from starting at that breakfast, but for the last 4 years, is that I can pick up the phone, and I do often, to both of these guys and say, hey, I either need some advice, or I need to know what you're doing, or I want to complain about something, but I don't want to do it in the paper like my predecessor might have done. So we have the kind of relationship that might not make headlines, but I think at the end of the day, as Sandy said, it's more collaborative, it's more productive, and I think the region as a whole it works more efficiently when the three of us have the kind of confidence and trust in each other that we can pick up the phone.
And Dave, you're correct. I mean, stop and think about it. We like people being individual. We try to celebrate people's individuality and being who you are. But it's interesting when counties do something different. And the moment one county is doing something, we're getting a call, specifically from the media. How come you're not doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Well, again, that individuality of municipalities in Macomb County or counties, even within the region, there is going to be a difference in the makeup and the way people think and the way they do things. And so we aren't going to always do the same thing. But to Warren's point, I mean, there are times when there is an issue that comes about, and we do figure out how do we collaborate. I'll use an example, was the juvenile justice facilities. Most people don't realize this, but they're not mandated by the state. So there's no requirement by law for a county to have a juvenile justice facility to detain kids that need to be detained. Some counties, it's run by the courts. In other counties, like Macomb, it's run by the executive's office. And so with that, there was an issue with some of the kids down in the Wayne County detention area, the extension that they had and how many they had. And so the state was trying to figure out how do they resolve this. And so the calls came our way. And so, Mel Brown and the folks over at the state said, hey, is there something we could do to help relieve that? And so with that conversation, we thought, okay, there's a short-term, fix to that. But what do we do collaboratively to see if there's a long-term fix? And so now with this, we are working with those up in the Thumb area, St. Clair, Sanilac, Lapeer, trying to figure out if we can create some kind of a regional facility for juvenile justice detention. So we are kind of acting as a regional facility right now, but we thought maybe that's something we could do. And we pitched that to the state, saying maybe there's a way we can look to see if it's legislatively they can do something, or if we can just do it by working together with various counties. So it goes beyond the conversation to just the 3 counties here. We are continuously having conversations with other counties that border ours to see if there's a way we can collaborate as well.
I just was handed a card here. This is the honest to God's truth. It says, Mark Hackel, will you please run for governor? Love your mom.
Believe me, my mom would not approve. Do not do it. So,
Do you want to talk about it?
no, that's good enough.
Okay. We'll move on. Anyone else have anything they want to announce up here? We always have to ask these political
I
type
didn't announce
questions.
that. You announced that.
I'm just saying. Anyone else? Warren?
No,
We have,
Okay.
no.
All right.
when,
so
when
let's-
anybody says that to me, I say, we have the best, I think we have the best jobs in politics in Michigan. Nobody's trying to kidnap me, first of all. Or,
Right.
Oh,
so it's a little safer.
now that sounded like Brooks. That sounded better. That was good.
I'm just saying is that we have good gigs. I don't know why people are always trying to.
So let's talk about a question that comes up. This question has come up, I don't know how many years, Sandy, we have been doing this event and up on the island with the Big Four and talking about it. Let's talk regional transit. It's like Middle East peace process. We talk and talk and talk. So millages were passed. The 3 counties have it. I know people from SMART are here. Everybody is talking about having workable, meaningful, helpful regional transit. We know we have big events with the NFL draft coming here. We've got the Grand Prix coming here. And with all the cars that'll be coming in, we know it's going to be a logistical nightmare. If we had regional transit and a more like maybe a Chicago, New York, some other place which has more of that, do you think now, with these millages, is there a way to get something meaningful, helpful, and a difference maker? And
Carol, you really got to define that, you say regional transit and can people have.
so public can get around, whether it's.
I will say this, that is the one issue that we are not quite as warm and fuzzy with each other.
Well, we had to find one somewhere.
As we could be, but I don't think anybody's opposed to transit. It's the format. Before it was a big push with RTA, we'll have to relive that, but what I think people have a feeling for in terms of transit is the ability, really simply, to go from downtown up into Oakland County through Woodward at a high rate of speed without having to drive and do a bunch of stuff. And, in my county, Michigan Avenue going toward Ann Arbor and the airport is something that we think would be very, very helpful to move people in a significant way. But that doesn't have to be, huge infrastructure costs looking at it. That's one. Probably more Wayne County than anywhere else is much of the drop-off to transit, in my mind, is in underserved, distressed communities where people can't get out to other places. Maybe buses do part of it, but it doesn't do the whole thing. Those are the 2 issues. I'm adamantly in favor of working with my partners to try to come up with something that covers that and whatever they need to. I don't know that we're there yet, but I think the old RTA transit is, there's just no energy for it. And I think SMART is a very solid organization. I think its leadership has some bright ideas. And I think if that winds up being the format we ought to work through, fine. I don't care what it's called. I just got some issues. I'd like to get people downtown and back, east and west, north and south. And I'd like to get people who need to get to the workforce development that we're talking about and those other sorts of things. It's one thing to say you got a workforce development opportunity. It's another thing to get somebody in an underserved community who doesn't have transportation to get to workforce development.
Right.
If we could sit down and start to figure out ways to do that, I think we might be able to make some headway.
And we took a big step toward that in Oakland County last year. So we had a county-wide millage on the ballot so that every community in Oakland County would participate in public transit. That had never been the case before. We had a Swiss cheese of some communities in, and to your point of our underserved communities needing to get somewhere, sometimes they needed to get to a job in Novi or Auburn Hills or Rochester Hills, and the buses didn't stop there. They literally drove through Novi because they were an opt-out community. So we did something last year that I think is, I don't know if people fully understand, but I think it's going to be a game changer because we now have the public overwhelmingly, the voters overwhelmingly approved an entire county-wide, all opt-in millage. So you can get to every community in Oakland County. That's important because if we're going to go to the next step, and I still want to, I still believe in transit. I still believe in a transit system for Southeast Michigan that works fast and dependable and safely and all of those things. And I'm still committed to it, and I know there's still energy to do something. It's going to be more incremental. I think that's what Warren is
What's the
saying.
next step? I mean, if you
The major
hold
corridor.
it just 1 second. What's the if I said to you then, okay, here's the next thing, tiptoe the next step. What is it?
I think it's the major corridors, as Warren suggests. I don't think it's overlaying the old RTA plan on the entire region. We've heard from our friend and colleague Mark Hackle that this might not be something that Macomb wants to do right now. They have an all opt-out in system. That's fine. This can be phased in across the region. If you want to come in at some point, fine. If not, let's start to identify the major corridors that need those improvements. So I think that's probably where we're headed.
And at this point, I'm the stepchild in the process because I'm the only one that has a county with a bunch of opt-out communities.
Yeah.
Once we get to a position, if we ever get to, where all of the communities are opting in, means paying something toward it, we can figure out ways to do it. And I think, what those ways are going to obviously be, motivated by the communities that are there and what they need and what they want. And that's the way it should be. But I think Wayne County has to get to an opt-in status to be in the same discussion with Oakland and Macomb, and we're not there yet.
Mark, they rolled out the red carpet for you. Take it away.
Thank you. And this is not a soundbite moment. But that being said, Macomb County opted all in over 3 decades ago. Back when they talked about regional transit over 30 years ago, Macomb County was the first and only county where every municipality opted in and said, yes, we need what was then considered to be regional transit. We agreed to that. And every time that's been on the ballot for SMART, the continuation of a millage and or extension or growth of the millage, Macomb County has always voted to support that. The challenge came in when they talked about RTA and throwing in another $1.5 million on the top of it to get everybody connected and everybody doing what Macomb County did, but also adding all these other bells and whistles that we would all like to see and have. But what they said in Macomb County was, hang on a second, why don't we grow the system we currently have? And Dwight, Tiffany, and the rest of the folks over there at SMART, I got to identify you because you've done a fantastic job of continuing the legacy of SMART in Macomb County, because anytime we needed something different or added, the communities speak out, they have these conversations with SMART, and they provide that. But what do we need to do as far as growing this within the region itself is continue to get everybody connected, fully connected. Everybody is part of this system, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and then figure out incrementally, what do we want to add? What would we like to see that would add value to the entire region? But do it through SMART. I say grow smart, make smart smarter. There's an opportunity to do that with the tried, tested, and true organization that we currently have right now that is an incredible value to Macomb County. Macomb County was the first regional partner in dealing with regional transit and will continue, I believe, to support that. Once we know exactly what it is we're looking to do, and adding to a millage in Macomb, I think would be supported with other, I guess, advantages or things that we're looking to do within the region. But it has to be done through SMART because that is a system that has been trusted and supported in Macomb County.
Anything
so
else?
Thank you for the efforts.
Yeah. Anything else anyone else want to add up here?
No, I was just going to give them the $5.
Oh. So Mark.
I'll take it.
Yeah, really. So Mark, do you cook? Maybe you should have a dinner at your house and invite these guys over and plot out the next step, maybe here. What do you think?
I'd make a mean bowl of cereal. That's it. Lucky Charms? You got-
So this is kind of an offshoot of transportation. We know millennials, Gen Z, Gen Y, they don't necessarily want cars. In fact, I did a special, gosh, Rod, how many years ago was that? 5 or 6 years ago, and said babies being born then would not be driving cars. Well, I'm not sure that's the case because everything would be automated, what have you. But the fact is, young people want to have legitimate transportation to get around so they don't have to have a car. We know we're losing population, we're losing young people. We'll get to the population question next. But with this pressure to bear of wanting to keep more young people here, knowing that this is one of the factors in livability and quality of life that they look to, is that making this conversation, is to give it any more lift and momentum in your mind and in your book and priority? I'm looking at Dave.
It does to me. There's this concept in transportation of complete streets, that streets shouldn't be just for cars, they should be for pedestrians, they should be for bikes, they should be all different modes of transportation. Why? Because that's what young people want today. They don't want cars. When I was 16, that's the first thing I wanted was a car, and then when I was 18, I wanted to move out of my parents' house. Any 16 or 18-year-olds doing that anymore? They stay at home forever, and they
come back around, they boomerang, come back and live in the basement.
So the key, and you hit on it, is we're not growing as a region as well as we need to.
Yeah.
And this is one component of what will help keep our young people here and keep them raising families here and attract people here. This is one component. But another component I want to bring up is when I looked at the census data for Oakland County, we grew a little bit over the last 10 years, but we would not have grown at all had it not been for foreign-born residents. And I think we have to do a better job in this country of making the immigration argument that we need more people here. These people have been good, productive, wonderful members of our community. We need to lift that up, and we need to figure out how we make this a more welcoming region for everybody.
And don't buy into the census count numbers so significantly. I mean, we have a significant population in the city of Detroit that are new move-ins. If you check with DTE, the turn-ons are significantly higher, but they don't want to pay the insurance with the Detroit address, so they're living in Detroit and they're voting at mom's house. I mean, that's a reality. And so the physical numbers are higher than the census count shows, and to the extent that whatever barriers there are for them to accept the Detroit address as opposed to the other is what we need to be working on, because they're there. Let's get the count. Let's be able to deal with that. So I don't think the census count, both in Wayne County and Detroit, it wasn't a big drop anyway, but I don't even think.
What was the percentage?
I don't remember right now, but 2-3%, 1%, I don't know. It was negligible, but I'm not even sure that's true.
Okay.
You know, I think it's close enough for there to be some small population growth. So, you know, the housing is there, the job creation is there. The other problems that we need to fix. I mean, the crime problem, mental health problems, those we work on and make a substantial improvement, and I think we'll see not just more people coming in, but more people admitting they're in.
Did more people make Macomb their home in the last
Well, it sounds like we got one more about to do that regional migration. I think Sandy's coming from Oakland.
He's bringing his Graves minivan
That
over?
gives us one more. I think that's coming. But for the reality, in Macomb County, yeah, we've seen growth in population. Again, the unfortunate reality is, you know, we tend to look at it as a region, and sometimes that gets that negative, you know, I guess, press on that. But the reality is, even as David mentioned, in Macomb County, right now, currently, 1 in 9 people in Macomb County are foreign-born. I mean, that's a testament to people feeling welcome, wanting to move to this region, come to this area. And so we continue to, I guess, support that and try to get people to realize this region is a place for people to want to migrate to want to live, to get a job, to raise a family. We got great educational institutions. So there's a lot of things we need to pride ourselves in. But I think the biggest issue is, how do we get the word out, not just amongst ourselves? We continue to champion our cause, and we're ambassadors amongst ourselves. But unfortunately, sometimes I think the stories that get out there, the headlines, kind of give an impression about this region of being, you know, the crime issues and things that are happening. In reality, we got the greatest workforce than anywhere else in the country. The talent that we have here, the talent pool. And so a lot of businesses want to come here because they realize this is the place to want to bring a business. We got to start when it comes to that marketing about ourselves. You know, that's the thing we need to continue to come together on, is marketing this region collaboratively so people truly understand the true assets. And sometimes it's not just about the narrative of the city of Detroit and the problems they're having. The city of Detroit is without question. They are that urban center of the region. But each one of us has our own little urban centers within our counties that we celebrate and we see good things happening. But we need to get away from the negative connotation, and the media needs to be a kind of a supporter in that too, and really start highlighting some of the positive things happening and try to help us grow this region by getting people to truly see what we really have and what we're really all about.
Oh, my. I'm looking for Nancy Kaffer, the new editorial page editor at The Free. Nancy, where are you? We're going to lock elbows and say, come on, don't blame it on the media. But I mean, when bad things happen, you have to write about it. We know that.
I get you.
You get that. And so we won't dwell on that. That'll be we'll do another roundtable, talk about that. The media, good, bad, and ugly, and leave it at that. Speaking of...
None of those under attack. I worry about the fact that the media is so important to democracy, and the fact that it is under such pressure is scary to me. I've seen the difference when the media is in a room where government officials are making decisions and they're not, and the conversations are different. It's important. Subscribe to your local papers. Promote journalism wherever you can, because it's critical to democracy.
Yes. This is true. This is true. It's not like the old days where there was like three networks, a couple papers, whatever. Now it's like everywhere. And do you trust what you read here, whatever? That's part of that next roundtable Sandy will be doing. You're all Democrats. We happen to have a House and Senate and governor's mansion controlled by Democrats. Question. Are you getting any tangible benefits from having Democrats, your party, in control of everything? As far as your county, what you're getting back in attention?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, unfortunately, the pandemic was always a concern, and there was a contentious relationship, you'd have with some of the decisions being made with, mandates and all that. And, I think it's pretty well known. I push back on a lot of that. And, I'm one of those that allows people to make a choice. And if there's an issue, let's legislate. Let's not mandate. Let's try to figure out how do we get through that process, because that's what legislators do. But getting past that, I think there's been a great working relationship we have had from our county with the governor's office and her team to try to grow Macomb County and to try to figure out what solutions the state has in partnering with us to make things happen. So we have seen that. And obviously, over this recent election, we've had a lot of great conversation with our legislators. I've got one of the greatest legislative groups going to Lansing right now, working on behalf of Macomb County. Not to say that we've had bad ones in the past, but they are really focused on trying to figure out how do they bring some of the funds that are at the state level back to Macomb to support us. And one of my big projects is the central intake and assessment. And we've got our ask at the state level, and I think we're going to get a hearing on that, and the state's going to partner with us on that particular project. So yes, we are having great working relationships, and I think it is benefiting us having the House, the Senate, as well as the governor kind of on our side on some of these issues.
Warren?
Get the calls answered a lot more, a lot quicker. I really don't want to do this, but I think I got to. Yeah, right. I've got to say that Wayne County has 43 communities in it. Many of them distressed, some of them top-notch communities, but there are 42 others other than Detroit. And when you look at appropriations and supplemental appropriations, they go to the city of Detroit. I'm not a Detroit hater. I was born and raised there. My mother was born and raised there. This is not an anti-Detroit anything. This is just fundamental fairness. Yeah. There's 600,000 people in Detroit, 1.8 million people in Wayne County, which means I have twice as many citizens in Wayne County outside of the city of Detroit as in the city of Detroit. And my argument always is, we got to fund some projects. We have to do some things at the state level to identify and appreciate these other communities, and even politically. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out that you got 1.2 million people out there waffling, and I am the elected advocate for them. And while I am a strong Democrat and have a good relationship with the governor and her office, the delivery to my other communities has not been even close to what I'd like to see it.
Dave?
I'm a happy camper. I've spent most of my political career, I've been in elective office now for 20 years, trying to figure out what to cut and how to beg and scratch for money in Lansing and in the federal government and whatnot. And over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, and you put it in a partisan light, so I'll say, because President Biden and the Democrats wanted to do something around Corona that was significant, and the ARP and CARES before that was an infusion of cash in local governments that I have never seen in my lifetime, and that was a real transformational opportunity to make investments in things that we had neglected for many, many years. So that was transformational for us to have those kind of dollars. And now, with a legislature that, Oakland County's been a donor county in Michigan for, Brooks complained about that for decades, and I did too when I first got here. But we now have partners in the legislature that are willing to make investments and not just talk about cutting taxes and cutting budgets. And so the opportunities now, but it's not an unlimited spigot. They still have to be good projects. They still have to make an impact. They have to make a difference in our communities. We've been really intentional about spending our ARPA dollars and any other revenue we get with KPIs. We're going to measure the results of it. We're going to demonstrate what we're doing with it. But the opportunities now are unlike any I've seen in my political career.
And I want to add to that. It's interesting because sometimes we look at this partisan aspect, and that always becomes somewhat of a challenge, especially to me. You tend to hear people talk about the right, the left, the Democrats, and all that. But I've been fortunate. Even Tom Leonard, I see him sitting over here. I've had great working relationships, even when he was a speaker, and he was obviously a very powerful person in Lansing. But yet, I always have an open door in the conversations. And I think the problem we're seeing today is all too often, our politics are getting in the way of some of these things that need to be done on behalf of the people. You either have to identify to the right or identify to the left if you're running for office and you happen to have that RD next to your name. And these challenging primaries are continuing to cause us a problem because I think it's the parties that are dictating who these candidates are that are coming forth, especially at the highest level. I mean, at the federal level and then obviously at the state level, sometimes you can get away with it being a little bit more challenged and push against your own party on a more local level. But to do that, it's like in a primary, you've got to commit to doing what it is they want you to do as a strong right or a strong left partisan person. And after the primary, it's a race to figure out how do you convince people that you're willing to go and get in the middle. You're willing to reach across the aisle. And if I continue to hear public officials say, we need to, we should, we're going to reach across the aisle, my response to that is get in the damn aisle. Get in the aisle and solve the situation or the problems that the people are seeing and have those conversations with people that are Republicans, Democrats, find out what the real answers are, and let's not make them political answers. Let's do things that are on behalf of the people that they truly want us to solve as public officials elected for everyone. Dave is here, Warren is here, I'm here. We have Republicans, independents within our county. The minute we get elected, we're no longer here just for the party. We're not here just for the Democrats. We're here to figure out how do we solve the problem on behalf of everyone because we're elected to do that particular
Mark, that's
job.
your bell.
I saw you point to him and said, ring the bell. I saw that.
Warren, are you saying something? You looked over. Are you want to say something about
No.
this? Oh, you're just happy.
Yeah, just excited.
Good.
I will,
Motivated and inspirational.
It's Cinco de Mayo, right? Yeah.
but Carol, I will make just a point about what Mark said, because I agree. I've always been someone that wants to work across the aisles. I've had all of my budgets passed in a bipartisan way. We really do work together well. But there has become a fundamental change, at least in my experience in politics, and that is, and not to be too partisan, but we now have a major political party in Michigan that has been taken over by a group of folks who don't even really believe in government or want to collaborate and reach. The thing compromises is wrong, and it's hard to deal with that. And it's different than when I first got involved in politics, where we could agree to disagree and we could find areas where we could move forward. It is getting increasingly difficult. And again, I'm not trying to be too partisan, and I think that I don't want to put words in Tom Leonard's mouth, but I think that there's certain, the Republicans that live in Oakland County would agree that there is a faction of that party that doesn't want to compromise or even talk to you, and it has made it more difficult to govern. I think we have to acknowledge that.
So
And I think we need
these
to-
are
I think-
these
I think
wait,
we-
wait,
I
wait.
thought
These
we
are
had a-
divisive political times. There's
Wait.
people like Lena Epstein here who I know would like to jump on stage and ask you guys questions about this and would have things to say about what you just said, Dave. But here's the thing. I mean, since we have 3 Democrats up here, no Republicans. I just think we should.
That's exactly where I was going to go. But let's own that on our side as well, the Democrats. We too have incredible challenges that we're facing, we're seeing. There's no way I agree with everything going on within the Democratic Party. And I am probably the most vocal about it. I would be more than happy to say on both sides of the spectrum, something isn't right. We've got to figure out how do we start solving the problems by admitting if we're elected within the Republican Party, I hear it too. There are people that are Republicans saying, oh my God, our far right is crazy. I can't handle it. Well, then step out and challenge it. It's the same thing on the Democratic Party. We've got to be willing to step out and challenge it rather than go silent. You know, your silence is deafening. If you're not willing to step up and say something about it or challenge it, it's going to continue to perpetuate, and we're going to continue to see these problems every time during an election cycle. You're going to have the candidates that the Democrats want to put forth on the far left. You're going to have candidates on the Republican side on the far right, and then we're going to have bad choices to make when it comes to a general election, and we're all going to be disappointed. And what does that cause? People not wanting to go out and vote because they're upset with both candidates, and they're not willing to make a decision because they just don't care for either one of the actual candidates.
Well, you know, what I see very often in the last decade, and not disagreeing with what you're saying, is people run for office knowing that they are the minority party, know realistically that at the end of the election they're going to be in the minority, but with no idea that compromise is in the game. And I don't understand how that works. I mean, if you're in the minority, you're not going to get everything you want, but as my grandfather would have said, you learn to cut the hog. You know, you got to find a way to compromise and move forward some way. To me, it doesn't work to just be a protester. I'm against this and I'm against that. Okay, I mean, I get that. So can we get a little closer to something? And I think that's partially that inability for people to, the art of negotiation, the art of statesmanship.
So quick yes or no. Let's say you're all starting out. You're all teenagers, college. Would you still go into politics knowing what you know now? If you knew the environment was going to be like this starting out like it is today, would you have gone into politics? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Now, Warren, I want you to think about it now.
Yeah. That didn't take long.
That was the quickest, shortest answer. That was awesome.
Mark, you need an answer. We're waiting.
I'm going to be blunt. I don't feel like I'm in politics. I'm a politician. I've always been that street corner politician as a cop, working with people, trying to solve problems. You know, it's hard for me every time I run to have to identify as a Democrat or Republican. I tend to look at it as, and I think people recognize that. I had that very mindset to be an independent. I like the executive branch because I feel like I get to solve problems. I get to do things. And the hardest part is, I think, for a legislator, because a legislator really has to identify on one side or the other. You know, it's almost like I wish we had the nonpartisan identity like a mayor does in running for office. I think you'd see a lot. I think you see a lot more approachable people that are willing to solve problems that wouldn't be based upon an ideal from the right or the left.
I knew he couldn't answer that in one word.
But you know, this is interesting because it was interesting to see. Were you going to be honest about it, or were you going to give the politically PC answer? So I appreciate that. Yeah. This is a panel of buyer's regret, is what I'm going to call it, and what your career
buyer's
choices
remorse.
are. Yeah, things.
It was better being the sheriff. It was better being
I agree.
the sheriff. I'll admit that.
So we can't be here and talk about this when this one issue is so important. In fact, it probably explained why some people got here late. The infrastructure, the roads, the crumbling bridges, and all that sort of thing here. So here's the question. I know. This is called a minute and a half answer each. This is the recent troubles Lincoln Park finds itself in are rooted in aging infrastructure. What project in your county are you involved with to help address these potential time bombs?
Probably probably 2 pages worth of projects, and there are a bunch of Wayne County leaders here. Our DPS is, I think we did 150 miles of repaving last year. We have a 10-year asset management plan that helps us figure out what should we work on next. Why do we wait until a street is crumbling and have to do a complete rebuild, then try to work through it? I think we're making a lot of progress. It's an awesome task. And you got to remember, Wayne County was the first county. You have all of these bridges with every different kind of architecture in the world. We can't even find people to fix some of them anymore. It's a monumental task. But having said that, I think our folks are doing a tremendous job with what we have and are stepping up the process of getting stuff done in a way that I'm really proud of.
Infrastructure?
Obviously roads and bridges and infrastructure is high on our priority, right? And you can't do it fast enough. It's simple, though, in the terms of this. It comes down to dollars, right? These things, Mark and I were joking earlier, you can't use a 3D printer to make a mile of pavement. So you have to make this investment, right? So you have to make the investment. And that has been the challenge. So getting federal monies are fine, but look, the legislature's been grappling with this question for years and has not found the right magic formula to do it at a level that would bring our roads and bridges up to where they need to be. And so that's collectively on all of us. What are we willing to do? When I was mayor of Ferndale, I had to go out and tell the folks, nobody's going to come fix these residential side streets of ours. If they're going to get fixed, we're going to do it. And I went out and I sold a millage to them, and they approved it, and now we have really nice residential streets in Ferndale. It's kind of the same thing. What are we willing to do collectively as a state to make that investment? And frankly, the legislature hasn't come to that decision yet. So we're doing it piecemeal. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of really good projects. I'm really jealous about the Mound Road project because you've gotten some great federal dollars to make that a model road. We need to do more of that, but how do we pay for it?
Money is a part of it. It's a big part of it. It's a huge part of it. But working smart is also something, that we have to look at. You have to work with the resources you have to maximize the benefit that way. And that's kind of what, you can always wish and hope for additional revenue, and I do, and try to fight for it. But I also understand in the county's ability to get to where it is.
To where it is.
From before financially. Just be fiscally responsible, work smart, and things get better.
Mark, anything quickly?
Oh, sure. Now, Mark gets the only 2 minutes.
You get a minute. No, 1 minute.
I'm
That's if you want to make a closing statement.
So, yeah, this has been a key issue. Obviously, day one, once I took office, this has been the most problematic issue is dealing with roads and road issues. And the governor, appropriately, with her commentary, fix the damn roads. I would agree with that. But the unfortunate reality is to fix the damn roads, you got to fix the damn funding. And so the question becomes, where are we coming up with the funding? And people keep talking about growing the pot. Okay, there's no question about it. No question. I don't care if you're a local unit of government, a city, a county, working on behalf of the townships. There isn't enough money to fix this problem, but there are opportunities to change that. And as Dave pointed out, and he's exactly right, the executive branch is responsible for fixing those roads. And there isn't a damn road or a damn bridge that we can't fix if we had the damn money to do it. We will fix any road, and Mound Road, as David pointed out, is a prime example. There was no funding for that. We didn't have that planned out for a 3-year process. It wasn't there, but it was one of the most disruptive problems we've had in Macomb County, and we pitched it because of the economic impact that corridor had on the nation's economy. And so we got over $100 million from the federal government. First time a local road project, Brian Santo, my Department of Roads director, this is the largest project we've been working on. But again, we're going to get those one-offs, and we're very fortunate. Our legislatures will work on that. The governor's been working on that to try to find funding to fix a bridge or a particular road. But that's still not sustainable. That is not what we're looking for. We're trying to figure out how do you solve this. And what we need is an honest answer on behalf of the legislature at the state level. Because if the state says that's it, we're tapped out, we're not adding anything, we're not doing anything else, then say that. We need to hear that. Why? Because then it forces municipalities like you had mentioned in Ferndale where they said, we're not getting any more, so folks, you're going to have to pony up if you want us to fix those roads. And now you got another legislative body that can address the issue saying it's not coming from the state. It's not coming from the federal government. They have told us that. So now they know at the DPW in Ferndale we're going to have to do something. If our voters support a local millage, we now have the funds to fix our roads, and or the county, which is less probably, it's more doubtful that a county would do that. But local units of government can then say to their voters, if you want better roads, we are going to have to pay for them, and we have to put a millage together and get that passed. So here is what we'll do with that funds if they come in. So again, it's about fixing the damn roads, but until we fix the damn funding, we cannot get to your damn roads. I use that word because
This
the government-
sounds like, to me, this sounds like a Mark Hackle 2024, fix the damn funding, which follows up on fix the damn roads. There we go. I've teed it up for you. right
thanks.
there. You don't need to hire a marketing firm. It's all set up for
Thanks.
you here. So we're winding it down here, and we've got like 30 seconds left here. And we're talking very, very short answer here because I know everybody's busy. You guys are busy. You want to go to Cinco de Mayo. You got to do your lawn. You say you haven't cut your lawn all spring.
Here come my grass.
They're going to give you a ticket for hazard having your lawn too high.
I get 10 seconds.
10 seconds. All right, here's a quick question here. Quick answer here. As a region, we've gone through trying times. How do you feel, how optimistic are you over the next 5 years in our region? Again, this is like 2 or 3 word answers. 2 or 3, how optimistic are you about our region?
I'm very optimistic. I mean, we just got to come together to try to, be ambassadors for the region to get that word out about the good things that are happening, identify the positive nature of what we're all about, and continue to get that word out.
Warren?
Very optimistic if we can keep the team of players that work together and really care about the region.
Okay. Dave?
Keep the team of players. I'm up next year. I am incredibly optimistic. I really am. I think we have survived COVID in all that entailed, and we have the ability to thrive in the future if we continue to work well together. If we brag about ourselves a little bit more, I agree with what Mark said. We're sometimes we're hardest on ourselves than anybody else. But I think the opportunities before us are incredible, and I'm very optimistic.
Well, gentlemen, this has been insightful at many different levels here. I know we all appreciate you sharing the challenges you've been facing, talking about the opportunities and things you're doing together. So thank you for that. And thank you for the great questions here on it. And I want to thank the Chamber, too, for pulling this all together, and Tammy and everybody else here who worked in putting this together. And I guess, is this called This Is a Wrap?
It's a wrap.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Distinguished guests, this concludes our program. Thank you for attending Meet Southeast Michigan's County Leaders.